Yes.
And we are going
Go, Arthur H. Washington.
live. Can you guys talk?
Hello.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Hey. On the panel, Donnie's.
All right, guys, we are getting ready to start our live. I hope you guys are joining us.
Hi, I'm Strange Fruit with my other colleague.
Hi, I am Terrell Image.
And of course, I'm Arthur H. Washington.
And I'm Mia.
Welcome,
AKA
everyone.
Lukewarm Curls.
And we're still waiting on Facebook Live to come up.
Catch up with us.
Yes, we are. I wonder if we should. All right, guys. So for my Instagram fam, Instagram donies, we're just having some technical difficulties over here. There's something going on with Facebook Live, so we're trying to figure out what's happening.
Let me see.
Okay, so we are
Just a
going
second,
to
you guys.
we're going to check into that, but we are here and live in the Instagram world right now. Hopefully we'll be in the Facebook realm in a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, because it's saying that it's waiting for live video.
Good tea.
Thank you for that.
Which we will be spilling.
Good tea.
The tea on this book,
Hi.
Dawn of the Dragon.
Yeah, for some apparent reason, Facebook is taking a long time to come up. Told you guys Instagram. I guess we're just gonna start it again.
And then you'll just have to port it over.
Put it over.
Okay, well, I guess that's what Ty said. We're going to have to get started, and we're going to have to port over to Facebook. Sorry, Facebook Donnies, if you are trying to view right now. I'm not sure if you are. It will be ported over to you guys. We you know, when we have the technology is wonderful, it's great, it's awesome, but it also comes with its challenges and problems. We can't do anything about Facebook software. We've done all we could on our end. So, Strange Fruit, take it over.
Hi, we're here to talk about a couple of things, but most recently she's finished Dawn of the Dragons, which is the sister of Dawn, which is an awesome read for you guys. Welcome, everyone. I would like to have a chat with A.H. Washington this afternoon. We are here to talk about the prologue chapter of Dawn of the Dragons. You can find Dawn of the Dragons draft at Wattpad, searching by Dawn of the Dragons or A.H. Washington. Before we dive into the book, I have a few quick questions for A.H. Washington's. Why dragons and why fantasy?
Okay, well, dragons. So for those of you who know me personally, this will not be a surprise. But for all of my Donnie fans out there, it'll just be good for you to understand why I actually am fascinated and love the mythology of dragons. One of the main reasons is because when I was growing up, I watched a lot of mythos on TV. Some of you who, and I may be telling my age here, but I would watch Xena Warrior Princess. I would watch Hercules. And one of my favorite fantasy movies, actually, from back in the day is Willow. And anyway, there would always be either talks about dragons, or there would be dragons within those some of the episodes on those shows. And what I found was that I was curious as to if there was anything as it related to dragons when it comes to Africa, and as it will relate to the African culture, the many different cultures that are on that continent. And then as I viewed myself as an American of African descent. So that became fascinating to me, and I just wanted to know whether any African legends or myths related to dragons. So I, would go to the public library. You couldn't find anything. Long story short, it took some years before I found or realized that there were actually some myths that related to dragons based on Africa. Because typically, when you see dragons, typically you see these awesome creatures, and they're always with other races other than the people who are native to the continent of Africa. So definitely, when I fell in love with dragons, it became even more. They became even more stunning to me as I realized that, hey, so African Americans or people from Africa has some dragon myths or mythos that they can lean on, and that's where I really started to pull in my love for dragons.
Oh, wow.
So far as fantasy, as I already stated, growing up, I viewed fantasy as a way to escape the reality of my life. A lot of us come from broken situations, and unfortunately, I came from a broken situation growing up, and one of the ways that I was able to escape from some abuse and some neglectful things that occurred with me when I was a child was to actually dive into fantasy, and I wanted a new reality for myself. So in order to create a new reality, I had to live within the fantasy realm. I would write in journals and diary books that I just made up for myself from just basic notebooks. And I would view all of those fantasy movies and shows that came on. And actually, the other interesting thing is that because I love fantasy so much, I gained a respect for diversity. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, inner city. And in inner city New Orleans, when I was growing up in the early 90s, growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, growing up in inner city New Orleans, we never saw other race people until we went further out. Typically within the city itself, unless you went to uptown New Orleans, which began to change like in the late 90s, it was typically African American people. So I basically was around African American people all the time. So the respect that I gained for diversity came from me wanting to dive into the fantasy world. So I just count that as actually a blessing, because it actually taught me a reality, which was how to deal with and live around people who were different than me, who looked different than me.
Well, that is quite the answer. And I'm sure you guys got everything off your chest or whatever you were wondering. I want to change things up a bit. Mia, coming from where you're coming from and being almost a senior yourself, whenever we do return back to somewhat of normal, we're in the COVID-19 age, you guys, the virus. How do you feel that either imagination and dreaming is playing a part in what you do in school, or is it starting to fade away?
Great question.
Well, imagination and dreaming for me, as playing a part in school, I use my dreams or the things that I want to do, and I create this world that I want to live in. So I work hard to get there, and I'm going to keep working hard. It doesn't really matter because I know what I want, and I'm ready to strive for it. So having the imagination to be able to see where I'm going is really a blessing, and it makes me want to work even harder now to get there.
Ooh, I'm enjoying that. So now we're going to get on to Zagon arrives to Earth in the final chapter of Eragon. The action leads us to believe that Zaylin and the surrounding realms are not the only realms. His arrival also confirms that Kalera was in fact Zaylin through Zoran, and her family watched her for 3 years lying in bed. As an author, from the main character's perspective, divulge on what as much. Sorry, I'm getting so bad. Divulge on what as much as possible about Zagon's leap to Earth age.
Okay, so basically, yes. So if you remember Polaridon, and if you haven't, read the book. It's on Wattpad. You can also purchase it as well through Amazon, but it is also on Wattpad, and you can join Wattpad for free. If you remember by reading a book that at the end of Polaridon, chapter 21, basically Clara, she wakes up and she's home, and the idea is, what in the world just happened to me? There's no way that whole experience that she had just went through was basically a dream. And when she went to speak to Zoran about it, he basically tells her that myself and your brother and sister have watched you lie in a bed from the hospital to her home for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So how is any of what you're saying possible? Well, Clara felt a disconnect to that. She felt that there was something more. So she left the home with the idea that she was going to just do something stupid to prove them wrong. Hopefully to prove them wrong. So what she does is she climbs to the top of the Superdome, Mercedes-Benz Superdome to be exact, in New Orleans, Louisiana. She climbs to the top of it, she comes out, and basically she decides she's going to jump. It's either she's going to jump or she's not going to jump and get into a world of trouble and go to jail. So she decided to jump with the hopes that something or someone would save her. And what happens is that out of nowhere, Zagon, her dragon, appears and catches her. So basically, from that point, when you move into Book 2, Dawn of the Dragon, when we're talking about the prologue, specifically, Zagon has arrived, and he, this giant creature from another world, you may as well say, even typically we're looking at the realm here, this dragon is basically on Earth, in an American city on Earth. And basically this dragon is there for one purpose and one purpose only. And that is to save his mother, because that is how he views Clara, and to take her back to Zaylin. That is his only purpose. From his perspective, from that character's perspective. And when you're thinking to yourself, why is she referring to a dragon as a his? Well, because first of all, you have to read the story to understand Clara's connection to Zagon, and then also to understand that myself personally, as an author, as a person, I truly do love animals, and I do not refer to animals as its or refer to them as things. Actually, I refer to them giving them the same pronouns that we typically give to people. If the animal is male, he or him. Female, she or her. That's typically who I am as a person, and of course that crosses over with me as a writer. So definitely that was, looking at Zagon himself, his whole purpose was get my mom, get back to Zaylin. That was his purpose.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Not to Breakaway, right? So let's go back.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, she's gonna do this big old dramatic jump off of this tower thing. But then as I kept reading, and before I read, it was one of those things I have a question for the author now.
Mm-hmm.
First thing was, when she woke up, the first thing that she instantly wanted to do was separate herself and go take a bath. She used that as an excuse. Mm-hmm. But then as you kept reading it, it wasn't the fact that, because I was like, why would she want to go take a bath after waking up after 3 years? Mm-hmm. But then as I kept reading it, it was to the point that I just needed to get away and clear my brain real quick, and I needed you guys to get out of here. And then it segues into, okay, now she's on the top of this building. Mm-hmm. But my question now is, was she anticipating to be saved? or did she really think that that was going to be the end? Because it had already established that Zagon first priority was to watch over his mom. He didn't sleep, and he watched over the city.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
when all the commotion was going on, did they not have the telepathical connection at that time? And it was something that we seen in this new chapter or this new book, or did they have it then and they just didn't realize it?
Okay, so that's excellent questions. They actually did have a bond. They did have that telepathic bond, but the thing was some type of way, which is being explored in book 2. Clara ends up back on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Zagon knows nothing about Earth. In that sense, the dragon doesn't. All the dragon knows is Zaylin and where the dragon actually is. The dragon has no idea where she is. So the little bond that they had that he sensed, and the thoughts in her head, because she kept hearing mother,
Mhm.
but she could not identify the voice as being that of the dragon.
Okay.
She wasn't 100% sure when she went up to the top. She actually didn't know if she was going to be saved. Which is sort of deep. She didn't actually know 100% that she was going to be saved.
Okay, so she really was ready to not go to jail and end it all right then and there.
If she could not, because we have to think about, let's get a little bit more into Clara. And again, guys, this is from Dawn, so you can read the book, but this is just to speak with Ty, because this is one of the questions that he has. So basically, you're talking about a person who was dealing with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And before she left to be, her whole energy
Mm-hmm.
that went to Zaylin, she was laying on the table getting her brain zapped through ECT.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a depressed person who was struggling with not just the fact that she lost her mom, who was on drugs and basically overdosed and died. She was also dealing with the fact that she, within herself, never truly loved herself as a person. So it wasn't just the death of her mother. That's what brought her overboard. But it was also the constant, she always felt like she did not quite belong.
Okay.
Type of situation. So that is sort of where she was at that point. And I think after she had been in Zaylin, had met all these new people, gone through what she had gone through, and all of the events that took place in Dawn, I believe she felt just to wake up in her bed in New Orleans was a bit much. Like, you can't tell me this was all a dream. It's how, she was feeling. And I think it took her back to that feeling of dread where, you know what, if I can't be there, I won't be here.
Okay.
And that's sort of what the thought process was. So she didn't exactly know. She heard a voice. The voice was saying mother, but she couldn't exactly identify the voice as being Zagon. She thought maybe it was, but she wasn't quite sure. And she jumped anyway.
Mm-hmm.
With not knowing if she would be saved or if she would hit that ground.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Okay,
That
so
was juicy.
the prologue is quite tense, but because it surrounds time immediately following Zagon's arrival. He can obviously be seen by Earthlings, for the better term, humans. What is a simple matter of trespassing on Clara's part in chapter 21 of Dawn has now become a matter of local, state, and national security. This blue dragon is standing on Silver Bowl Drive in New Orleans. So Zagon is so alive and he's so intelligent. It's like he thinks just like the rest of us. He's not exactly a dragon in the mind per se. It's not just an animal. This is an intelligent being. So from Zagon's perspective, what can you tell us about his feelings in the moments that people are surrounding him with guns and everyone wants to take him down? He's a huge dragon.
So I think so from the perspective, as the writer, from the perspective of that character in that moment, that perspective would be okay. Well, Zagon knew that their weapons would not have effects, and the reason Zagon knows that is because it goes back to book one. There's only one way that the dragon can actually die. The dragon understands that, so the dragon wants to protect Calera at all costs. But to go back to what I originally stated when Ty asked his question, is that Zagon had one goal. You jumped into the way of that goal. Well, whatever happened to you is going to happen to you because he wants to take Calera and he wants to get out of there. He doesn't understand, the rules. He doesn't understand why these people are trying to kill him. He just wants to take his mother and he wants to go.
Okay. So you know that since the dragon does know that him and Calera share a bond where if she dies, he dies as well. Do you think part of his love for her derives from the fact that he wants to survive?
That's a very thoughtful question. I would, when Dawn of the Dragon explores more, explores more of the historical aspect of dragons and where they come from within the realm of Zaylin. So just to talk about it without giving too much away, I will say that any creature, any human being, any animal per se, thrives to want to live. Mm-hmm. Not even an ant on the ground wants you to step on it in its life. And whether we think, well, that's just silly, you're talking about an ant, but it's just, that's the truth. Everything that is a living, breathing organism per se, that's alive, wants to live. So in a sense, Mia, that's very thought-provoking because of course Zagon wants to live. He doesn't want to die.
But I really think that what I got from Zagon was, like you just said, his number one goal, which he did not understand, was to protect his mom, mm-hmm. To make sure that he gets her to where she needs to be in a timely fashion. He doesn't know why. I think it's just that telepathical thing that both of them have with each other. Mm-hmm. He knows the direction, she knows the feeling. With the two of them together, mm-hmm. it's like the pair that you just can't break, because she had a certain entity about herself that he had too, but then it's like both of them became better once they got around each other. Mm-hmm. That's why I asked the question about chapter 21. When she jumped, it's like, did she know that there was something greater that was supposed to happen? Or did she know, like, I'm just done with it? Because I know that the book, in the prologue or in the first chapter, no, I don't want to skip over then. Let me back up then. It was just one of those things that once you realize that they did have a connection, they just didn't know how big their connection was.
Right.
So now we're going to be able to see, as it goes on, how it grows stronger and how it grows stronger, and his love and the protection for her.
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right. We're going to get more into... Calera tries to connect with the officers and the soldiers by showing herself to be quite the human. What could have been going through her mind, their minds, as she was speaking to them?
So for those, officers and soldiers, I think some of it was fear because they're looking at this ginormous blue dragon. Like, what the hell is that? Right. And then the other part of it was they have orders. They are told what they are supposed to do, and that's what they're thinking about. So either we're going to die or we're going to kill it, and that's their thought process there. And I think just the fact that they are human beings. They're in their city and they want to protect their city. They don't know that Zagon has no interest in laying waste to New Orleans or to the state or to the country, for all that matter. They don't know that. They are there because they were there because someone called the police about.
Somebody called us.
Someone called the police, and Calera was up there trespassing. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she was. So they were there, and of course, when that dragon showed up, more of them arrived, including the military, and they were. So there was, part of it was fear. The other part of it was, we're doing what we're told to do and what our job is. And their job was to take Eragon down, basically.
Understood. Before I turn this over to Ty, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that you personally think humans are so terrified of what they can't understand? Why does that terrify them so?
Number one, it's in our nature to fear or to just not like what we don't understand or don't know. I think that's within all of our nature. I think the essence of it, though, is curiosity. Sometimes we have to get to know people, get to know sometimes even groups of animals before just wanting to go out there and kill or just wanting to be disrespectful to one another as humans. We need to try and step back and get to know people and animals for who they are versus just looking at them and having a fear that is natural, but not even being willing to make some changes within ourselves to do better. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, when you're talking about a dragon, that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. This is, for all intents and purposes, this is a monster. Mm-hmm. So, and typically dragons will breathe fire. They will do something that will cause a lot of hurt and devastation. I think, at the point in the story, the Calera was there to bridge that world. She was there to try and present Eragon as, her baby that was not going to harm them, that only wanted to take her and go. But typically as humans, yes, we fear what we don't understand and what we don't know. And it's just something that's natural.
Yeah, I think it was really just lack of knowledge. But I think that the good thing about what she did for the both of them was, like you said, she was the voice in between the two. He only understood what his duties was. They only understood what their duties were. So when she came into play, she was that one person, because even in it, he had said, okay, I'm going to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And we're going to try it your way. And when you speak, I'm going to add something to it so that everybody around us mm-hmm. would hear you clearly. Mm-hmm. So there's no mistakes, because what I think that his thing was, we can't make no mistakes if I go against what I know how to do.
Right.
And what I know how to do is protect you, because he said it. He said, if they get close, mm-hmm. there's no way you're going to stop me from just taking everything out.
Yeah, he did.
That's the thing, though. When people's beliefs comes into clashing, no one wants to see what the other tribe is trying to do. They can't hear Eragon's thoughts. Only they can hear Claire. My question is, why wouldn't they just listen to the person who knows what's going on? Clearly, she knows why the dragon's there. She's trying to get them to not fire at him mm-hmm. to save their lives.
Yeah, but it goes back to the same thing that the author said. Mm. It's the fear of. If you have a dog right now that's a really big dog, and you're walking in the neighborhood and there's another little dog that's coming along, with the person that has the little dog naturally is going to fear, not knowing that your big dog could just be a puppy. It just looked like it's bigger than it is. Yeah. So as the owner and as the person that has more knowledge of the pet, mm-hmm. you go on and you say, oh, it's okay. You reassure the other person that it's going to be okay, because you already know it's the size that they're afraid of. Mm-hmm. They don't know that this is a big teddy bear and he only wants to protect me. Yeah. As long as you don't bother me, it's going to be okay. And I think that's where she stepped in and she sided with him and just said, wait. And she knew how to talk to him. That's what I loved about mm-hmm. it. Even though they were learning each other and how strong it was, she still had a softness when she talked to him, and he still had a sternness that, Mom, I came here to do one job, and my one job is to protect.
Yeah, he's kind of like a soldier in a sense, but I really like that analogy that you used about the big dog and small dog, because we have Romulus, the husky that's in Polarodon. Rome is real; he's a real dog, and I have him all the time when we go on walks, and we'll see people with smaller dogs. The dogs will be really feisty, but the person is really not, because they don't know, does he bite? And Rome, he gets excited when he sees strangers. He starts barking and moving and biting the leash, but it's just because he wants to play. So I can relate with that analogy you used with the dog.
Okay, so guys, in chapter 1, we are actually, myself, the author, introduced you guys to a new character in the Dawn series. His name is Musfal. And as it relates to chapter 1, any of you can answer. What do you guys think about him?
I think Musfal is an interesting character, since we do come from a Louisiana background and voodoo magic, and like I watch certain TV shows like the originals from Vampire Diaries. It was based in New Orleans, and they have this magic and witches and vampires and stuff like that. And there's certain powers that you can have, but I feel like Musfal came on kind of strong at first. He was just like, yeah, I know my power. I can just, boom, do this for you. It wasn't like a kind of build up, like, I'm unsure if I can make this happen for you, but I will try, you know what I'm saying?
And see, I got something totally different. Let me tell you why I loved how he was introduced. Because he was introduced in the time that you have all of these cars out in front of this dang old house.
Yeah, I think
you gotta go. Because think about it right now. If you have the Army Marines and the FBI and all of these people, the neighborhood is locked down.
Yeah.
Even though they cast some form of a spell to freeze everybody mentally into the area, into the realm that they were in. When he came up, I went into the realm of, how this man knock on this door?
Yes, how did
walk inside of this house and say, "Girl, you got everybody out here."
But the sarcasm that he has, I love that
I think
so much.
this is where the age came into play. He knew, just like Exxon or Zayon knew what he had to do. He knew he was built in. This is like, it's like when you reach to the point of gaining all this knowledge on something, you have to use it at some point. And I think with his brain is, I've been practicing for so long.
Yeah,
and even though I've been doing a little bit here and there, this is a quest. Everybody wants to go on a journey, wants to go on a quest to show that everything that you learned into your small town, when you go out into another town, that it still holds itself. So when he walked in, he came in as if like, yes, I got this, but what made me know that he was fearless is that he walked through all of these people, got through all of these barriers, was able to walk in, and just imagine what was going through his head as he walked through the door to knock on it. That was my whole thing. Like, he went through all of that, knocked on the door, and was just like, girl, I'm happy to see you, but did you have to bring everybody? And he was just like, well, it's a big blue dragon, so it's like, there's no way of hiding it, so we gotta figure it out.
In this part.
Right.
So I actually loved how he came in, because he came in, it's nothing like when you've been booked for the job and you have to go in and you have to execute.
Yeah.
He was already called, he already knew to come, so he already knew to be prepared, because he bought. Oh, are we going further? Can we go a little bit?
That's fine.
Okay, because he bought some stuff with him, because he didn't come unprepared. He knew that he didn't come just to catch up with his homegirl. He came to say, okay, this ain't a false alarm. We actually finna do this.
Yeah.
But see, he wasn't the character for me though. When it was Zoran. Zoran was my character.
Oh.
Because here's the thing, what I think that chapter 1 actually let us know, and how we have to do life. When you're built for the job, you have to put together a team. You have to put together a panel. Each person in the team and each person on this panel has something to offer, versus not knowing what we have to offer. Because all four of us here on this panel didn't know what we were going to come here. We knew what we were going to talk about, but we didn't know how the book was going to affect us in the way that the book affected us.
Yep.
They knew what they had in store for them, but they didn't know why this dragon, why this particular lady, and why these two men were brought together at this time with all of this chaos going on. As fearful and as scared as they was ready.
Yeah,
And that's what the good thing about it is. And what I liked about the book was in chapter 1, it taught us that once you put together or once you get a group of people together, you have to now be ready. Let's take five technical difficulties. Facebook was the one era that we wanted. It didn't work out the way that we needed for it to work out. But all four of us got together and we still putting together a good production and we still putting together something. So guess what? It works. And that's what I loved about them. It was so odd that it actually worked out. Because yes, he came into this character and he came in the person of knowledge, but it goes to show you need somebody of a spiritual guidance and a deeper root of how to get different actions out. Because sometimes, I might be Christian. I'm not a voodoo type of a person, but I do believe that if God gave anything power, it has power no matter how you look at it. It's according on how you do it. And so far, he didn't do anything wrong other than he came in and said, "What's up, girl? I ain't seen you."
Well, national security,
Like,
FBI,
you see all these people, everybody out here but the president.
right.
You don't like this regular. This ain't regular, mister.
Let me ask you, what president would you place in this time?
Oh, well, actually, this is current time. They're
So
currently
we're putting
in New
Trump
Orleans.
in.
So we've been trumped.
We've been Trump.
Point that.
Well,
But here's the
so
good
yes,
thing about
President Trump is president because this is.
But here's the good thing about President
current time.
Trump. President Trump is not going to hide the factor. He's going to make sure that, oh no, that's fake news. You guys don't have to believe that. So even if you're trying to cover it up, he's the perfect president to have a cover up with, because he's not going to look into it once he says it's fake news. Or at least he's not going to show the people that it's real news.
Right, he
until
wouldn't
it's
show
time.
them. Yes,
So,
that's
it's good
true.
that it's in this time frame.
That is true. Kudos to you, President Trump. Kudos to you.
Okay, so the cover is extraordinary. It tells the story in its own realm. Can we expect the cover to be explored in Dawn of a Dragon?
Actually, yes. The cover actually is explored in Dawn of the Dragon. What you see on the cover is actually a scene. I won't tell you which chapter, but it is actually a scene from the book. So the cover is definitely extraordinary in that sense that it actually occurs. I also would like to, since we're talking about the cover, I'd like to give a shout out to Fiona Jade at Fiona Jade Media, because Fiona is the young woman who actually created the cover, and she did an extraordinary job,
Awesome
and
cover.
she brought my vision to life. Thank you, Fiona.
Okay, so you have released your drafts on Wattpad. How much of the draft will become a part of the final version that will be released this summer?
Okay, so yes, so what you are reading on Wattpad, those are definitely drafts. Some of them are actually revised drafts that you're seeing. So I would say if you want to look at a percentage, I would say probably 60 to 70%. More or less 60% of what you're seeing will still be a part of the final version, but it does leave a lot of room for the revisions, and the manuscript is in the hand of my editor now, so there will be revisions that will not be included in Wattpad, and that's why I actually ask you guys, when you follow on Wattpad or when you read on Wattpad, make comments, suggest, constructive criticism. It's fine. I take that well. Just whatever you think at the time. I have a fan who she actually reaches out to me personally through Messenger because she doesn't want to do it on Wattpad, and that's fine. And she kind of critiques some of the things that is in the story, and we have a great discussion, and some changes are made. So I'm definitely open to changes. But do that now while you have a chance, because once the revisions is done and copy editing is complete, that is actually going to be the final draft that will be launched and released this summer.
Okay, so I have a question before we end anything, because we did talk about Musaf in his introduction, but we didn't give Zoran his fair introduction, because this is what I loved about him. He knew he loved her. Mm-hmm. He knew he had nothing but love for her. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, he knew that she secretly, or maybe he had an idea that she was in love with somebody else. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, I did read a little bit further, so we can't go that far. But what I loved about him was, even though that he was afraid, there was something about her that gave him peace. The same peace that Zygon, the dragon, actually had for her. Mm-hmm. It's like, because when she spoke to either one of them, mm-hmm. she had a certain way of how she spoke to them that put peace or a balance on them that I actually genuinely love. And I also love the factor that in the book, it showed us that the longer that the Zygon and Carla, or what are we calling her though?
Clara. Yes.
Clara and Zygon, I like the fact that you showed how the longer they were around each other, the stronger their connections mm-hmm. got with each other. Mm-hmm. So in the book, what made you introduce Zoran and his love for her, or show his love for her in the first chapter?
Okay, so again, you have to go back to Polarodon. So if you haven't read it, I don't want to give too much away, but his character is actually in Polarodon, and in that sense, he is. They dated. Mm-hmm. So they dated in the first book. He actually had dated her for a little while, and that's why he was the person that was there when she ended up in the hospital, for the unfortunate event that occurs in Polarodon. But the thing is that within the Polarodon story, you find out that when she is in the Zaylan realm, that other man that's there is a doppelganger. Mm-hmm. That man looks exactly like Zoran. So that character is Jessup. And if you've read the book, you kind of already know that. But that character is Jessup. And so when she, in chapter 1, in Dawn of the Dragon, she kind of mentions that she had an opportunity to briefly discuss mm-hmm. the situation and her feelings for Jessup, basically. But Zoran doesn't care about that. Mm-hmm. He's like, whatever, that was Zaylan. And he doesn't even necessarily 100% believe in Zaylan until he saw Zagon. Mm-hmm. To be honest, because remember, this is a man who watched her lay in a bed. Mm-hmm. So how in the world was she somewhere else? So he was having struggles with that. But he was just like, whatever. Maybe she was dreaming about me and gave me a different name. I don't care. I love you. And I don't think he ever said it in book 1.
But but this is my thing though. You brought him in the first chapter. Mm-hmm. And not only did you bring him in the first chapter, but he was a special entity that needed to be sought after, because without him, she couldn't get in contact with Musaf.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So my question back again is, you brought him in chapter 1 for what reason?
So basically, trying not to give so much away, but you guys can go on bypass the draft again.
It's a great read, you guys, by the way.
So basically, you're right. She asked him to call Musfal in, and I think that was more or less because she had to deal with the situation that was going on mm-hmm. outside, which was a big situation. So what you find out is that Musfal, yes, that's a friend, but he must be a really, really close friend because Zoran had his contact information. Mm-hmm. Zoran kind of knew who he was, and we don't meet Musfal in Polarodon, even though you would assume as the reader, well, this guy is a friend of hers, he's known her, he must have known she was in a hospital and all of this, but for the past 3 years, where has he been? Well, that will be explored somewhat in Dawn of the Dragon. But what's important, though, is that Zoran's connection to Musfal is why it made sense to bring Zoran in also, you know, in chapter 1. Because basically, she could have just kind of left Zoran until a little bit later on. He didn't have to come in. It could have been written in a different way. But it just made sense that if these notice who's not there. Her sister is not there. Her brother is not there.
Right.
They were at the end. They were at the end of Polarodon, but notice they are not at the house when all of this is going on. Who's there? Her boyfriend and a good friend. So that has to tell you about the relationship that she had with them.
But as an author, did you bring them together to put together a team?
The idea was if she's going to look for the Grass Cave, because remember that's the goal now. We have to get back to Zaylin. And if she's going to look for the Grass Cave, she had to think about who did she know that would, you know, be of value, who would add value to them looking for clues to get to where they needed to go so that they can get back to Zaylin. And Musfal would be that person who would add value. But Zoran is a person who knows her.
How to get in contact.
Yes, he knows how to get in contact, but he also knows Kalara. He knows her weaknesses. He knows her strengths. So it would make sense for him to be there as well. So they were brought together on purpose. So, you know, to create this sort of team or fellowship, as you will.
Well, I think kind of Zoran was important to her character development, because when he was brought in the first chapter, he's brought in from the beginning. So we know her how she interacts with him was way different than how she's interacting with him now. After going through that experience in the Zaylin realm with all these people, she's had to dive into more of a human persona, because before she was depressed. She didn't really interact as much as she does with Zoran now, because in chapter 1 of Polarodon, it's kind of like, hi, okay, all right, let's go. It's really monotone with him.
But was it because
now,
she didn't know her worth then versus she knows her worth now?
She written well when you go back to Polarodon, she didn't really know her worth. She felt like she was just in this mundane life, and she felt out of place, and she didn't feel like she belonged. So she didn't technically know her worth. And to dive deep into the thoughts, and this is not something that as writers, all writers write differently. Let me say that before I say what I'm about to say. We all write characters, and we give enough information to get the reader to think. And I think that's very important for the reader to take on the thought processes of what they think this character may be thinking in that time and place, because we don't want to give you, and she said this and she said that, and the reading becomes bottled down. It becomes too much, and you get bored with it, and you don't want to read anymore, because a lot of times we have to get to the points of the action at hand and what's going on. So to go back to that, she didn't really, from the perspective of the character, understand her worth. So their interactions before she wakes up in Zaylin is sort of, monotone. He was there and made sure she got to the hospital. He did CPR on her in book 1 in Polarodon, and he, brought her back because technically she died. And he brought her back, but at the same time, she didn't understand her worth to him. And someone reading this, and I only can say this because I had a fan actually say this to me. The fan said that when she was reading Polarodon, in her head she was thinking that maybe Kalara didn't realize that Zoran actually was in love with her. And that she wasn't worth being loved. But I think that was a good analogy, because just like Mia said, in chapter 1, she was very kind of shy, girl next door type of effect, real like, hey, how you doing, but not no eye contact. Whereas in now, you can see her growth in this first chapter versus the first chapter of the last book, which is a great
analogy to actually put out there because I didn't read the chapter 1 yet, so I'm gonna have to go back and read that part of chapter 1. But
Okay.
just to hear it, it makes me feel good that there was growth in their relationship. And you brought it back in chapter 1 just as well as it was in chapter 1 in the other book.
Right.
Because
right.
their relationship had grown so deep. But see, that's what made it so interesting for me though. Now that we got that part out of the way, that's what made it interesting to me because his love for her, like, even though he was there all that long time, it still was something about when she came to him for help. And he was the only one in her brain that could get it done for her. And
Right.
he did get it done for her. And even though he never probably told her how much he loved her, I felt like he always showed it at the time he needed to show it.
Yeah.
And even though another man could have possibly got her attention, it was something different. And that's the thing about love. The flesh allows you to see one thing, but it also allows you to feel something else too.
Yeah.
So, that was good.
Alrighty.
Alrighty.
What a discussion, you guys. And to believe this is our first kickoff of 2020. Hello. All right. Thank you, A.H. Washington, for chatting with us, the Polarodon Realm. We look forward to additional chapters leading up to the release of Book 2, Dawn of the Dragons. We can catch up with A.H. Washington on her Instagram, which is A.H. Washington Instagram. Also, today's panel has been funded by Cerealistic Desserts on Instagram. We have some cheesecakes, some cookies and stuff like that. Really good baby showers, all that good stuff if you're having any events. Also, Ty, I am Ty, T-Image on Instagram. Mia, what is yours?
Lukewarm curls.
Lukewarm curls for all you natural girls out there. You're natural too, honey. It's a little muggy out here. And yeah, we had a good time. And as always, Donnies, especially in this time of what we got going on with the virus and all that, don't forget to dream.
Yes, do not forget to drink.
Alrighty, you guys.
All
And
right.
that's it for that one.
All right. Bye, Donnie. See you later.
Don't say anything, you guys. Let me take your phone.